Buenas and Alfade, mene nahuds and mene luhu si Pete Santos. Today is September 15th, 2024. I think you're going to want to grab some popcorn. I am going to record this video. It's going to be long because there's a lot to talk about. And the subject is about corruption at the AG's office. Actually, it's really just the AG himself, Douglas Moylan. So I want to talk about two things first. They're called maxims, right? And the first one is something I'm sure most, if not everyone, has heard. Power corrupts. Absolute power corrupts absolutely. Keep that in mind because I'm going to talk about what we've experienced under Doug's second term and the behavior and the enabling of a corrupt person and how absolutely corrupt he is. And then I'm going to talk about the moral imperative. The moral imperative is about doing the right thing, about doing the correct thing at all times. And one of those things is speaking up when you see something wrong. And I've always gone or followed the moral imperative in my whole life, since I was a kid. When I learned about what the moral imperative was, I had lots of mentors and people in my life that have always told me this thing, always do the right thing even if nobody's watching, because you can never escape yourself, okay? And that's one of the problems with Doug Moylan is he's a pathological liar and he's a toxic narcissist and he believes his own lies, right? And he is willing to be unscrupulous. The people of Guam have created a monster by electing him as the AG again, and he is willing to use his power unscrupulously and use it to intimidate people and to get what he wants. But I'm not afraid of him. And I don't understand why a lot of people are afraid of him. Yeah, he has power and he can use it and he's dangerous. But at the end of the day, he's incompetent. And he's been losing in the Supreme Court, in the Superior Court. He's been losing. He's been losing in the Civil Service Commission as well. And so when he keeps losing, he goes and tries to get the rules changed in his favor. He wasn't able to do that for the law, but for procurement rules and things like that he violated and was called out on it. Then he went and asked the legislature to change the law, and they did, to suit him, right? And his excuse was, oh, we don't have enough lawyers. Okay, so I wrote a letter to the editor, and it absolutely drove him crazy, I guess, because from what I hear, he wants it taken down. But, it was ran on the Saturday edition of the Guam Daily Post, and later that day, Candid News published it. And from what I understand, Monday, the Guam PDN is going to publish my letter. So, if he wants it erased from the internet, then or from existence, then he's going to have to go through all three of those. The Guam Daily Post, the PDN, and Candid News. And everyone knows that you don't silence people, especially people who are speaking up about corruption, like I am. Okay? So I said that he's a pathological liar, and I only know this because I've watched him in court, and the judges have watched him in court. And I keep asking him, why do you keep changing your story? Why do you keep changing your arguments? That's why he keeps losing in court. because he can't keep track of his own lies. Okay, so one of the other things that he mentioned in his rebuke of me is that he attacks me personally, saying that I'm a disgruntled former AG. I'm not disgruntled. I don't like what I see up there because it is wrong, it is illegal, it is unethical. People are hurting up there at the AG's office, but I'm fine where I'm at. And when I was up there at the AG's office, I was winning all my cases. I left under Leave Camacho because I saw some bad things happening there too. And I was calling it out. And because I called it out, they harassed me and did some things like transfer me and confiscate my computer and went through it, even though Guam law says that you have to have a warrant to search a government of Guam employee's computer. I guess I had enough of their clicks up there under Leavin, so I left, right? Because there's better places to work and better things to do. So then I go over to the alternate public defender's office, and I'm again winning majority of my cases. So I want to talk about how Doug tries to paint me as a disgruntled former prosecutor, that his prosecutors, right? Those prosecutors were there before him, keep winning. Well, that again is part of his pathological lying and his gaslighting and twisting of the truth, right? Let me tell you what really happens. Well, let's talk about some of the cases I won. The Jojo Garcia case, those were actually 3 separate cases, but we did it in one trial. That's the former police lieutenant that was caught on video, pointing a shotgun at one of his neighbors who was accosting him. So there were actually 3 separate incidents, and I got him acquitted on all 3. Okay. Jamie Netadog was accused of murder in Sumay, right? He was innocent. I got him acquitted. Robbie Leon Guerrero, most recently, the chief prosecutor, it was her second case as a prosecutor. She lost the first case to my coworker, Tyler Scott, and then she lost this one to me because she failed to do the most basic thing, which is to have any of the witnesses identify the defendant. So they had to dismiss the case. This is their chief prosecutor. And this is the third chief prosecutor. The first chief prosecutor quit on day 1. That was James Spivey. And I'll talk more about the how the attorneys keep quitting, right? Then the second one was Heather Zona, who did her level best to try to, manage the prosecution and manage Doug at the same time. And you saw what happened with that. She resigned, and a letter was leaked where she revealed all of she didn't reveal it, but it was revealed in that letter to him, all the toxic things that he's been doing and illegal things and unethical things. So if you don't believe me, believe his chief prosecutor who resigned, right? He keeps losing all his cases at the Civil Service Commission. He keeps firing people. I recently got a recording of him saying, "I don't care about you fight me at the CSC. I will get rid of you." So that's him drunk with power. He doesn't care. He doesn't care about rules. He doesn't care about ethics. He doesn't care about laws. He is the AG. He went to the Supreme Court to argue the case about whether or not he can abandon the GovGuam agencies. And during that case, Justice Carbolito warned him that what he's doing is unethical. And if he wants to find out, then just keep doing what he's doing. And apparently, he has a difference of opinion because now he wants to go to the U.S. Supreme Court. This is the Guam Supreme Court telling him, that he's doing everything wrong. And then also, twice, they've recommended that the Regulation Council, also known as the ethics prosecutor, investigate him for his unethical behavior as the AG, right? So getting back to, his attack on me that I'm just a disgruntled former prosecutor that keeps losing my cases. No, I keep winning my cases. Even the cases where he releases press release. Now, those are false. So let me tell you a typical case of what happens. And then he claims victory. The people of Guam and the taxpayers actually lose in these cases, lose out, the money and the time. The court wastes its time. The jury wastes its time. Because this is what typically happens. So I will have a case. My client is charged with 4 charges. Charge 1 and 2, he pleads not guilty. Charge 3 and 4, he admitted to. Okay? So I tell them, hey, he's going to plead guilty to charge 3 and 4, and, we can dismiss charge 1 and 2 because you can't prove it and he's innocent. They say, no, let's go to trial. So we go to trial. And I even tell the jury, my client admitted to charges 3 and 4. Go ahead and find him guilty of that. But you can't find him guilty of charges 1 and 2. So what happens? The jury comes back, not guilty, charge 1, not guilty, charge 2, guilty, charge 3, guilty, charge 4. Then Doug turns around and says, oh my gosh, we won. We beat Pete Santos again. He's the losing attorney. No. First of all, Doug doesn't understand how the process works. Defense attorneys don't lose or win. Our client is the one who decides whether they want to go to trial or not. But he forces it because they're not going to plead guilty to something that they're not guilty to, right? And then when the jury comes back and says guilty, charge 3 and charge 4, which the client already pled guilty or admitted to it, and I tell the jury, go ahead and find him guilty of charge 3 and charge 4 because he admitted to it. But you can't find him guilty of charge 1 and charge 2. And then, of course, they find him not guilty of charge 1 and charge 2. But then Doug takes that and spins it. Look, we got a conviction. We beat Pete Santos again. No, that's not the truth. But that's how Doug spins it. And he doesn't understand how things work. But he wants to I'm the only one he ever names in his press releases from the Cuckoo's Nest. I'm the only one. Pete Santos lost again. Pete Santos lost again. And he doesn't put all the facts in the press release that charges 1 and 2 were found not guilty. But charges 3 and 4, he was found guilty, even though, oh, by the way, the client admitted to it. Charges 3 and 4. So yes, the jury's gonna find him guilty. I even tell them, find him guilty of charges 3 and 4. But that's what a pathological liar and a toxic narcissist does. And it's so easy to push Doug's buttons, right? How do you push a toxic narcissist buttons? You reveal his deceit. You reveal his lies, So let's talk about the blood on his hands. So I had a client who I had gotten him acquitted for shooting his son because we claimed self-defense. Jury came back and acquitted him. He was released. Then he got caught on new charges for robbery, I think. And in this case, Gloria Rudolph, the chief prosecutor, the day before trial, filed a dismissal without prejudice. And the reason was they had further investigation to do. So that's what they told the court. Okay? And remember, when you tell the court something, you can't lie to them. You have to be candid, right? So I was dumbfounded because I don't know what further investigation they had to do. The investigation was done. It was supposed to be an open and shut case. There were surveillance videos. There were multiple witnesses. There was so much circumstantial evidence, right? So a couple weeks later, Josh Taidegui in Talafofu was shot and killed. And the suspect was my client, who wouldn't have been out if they hadn't dismissed that case. So I go on the radio saying, oh my goodness, this is terrible. You know, the prosecution is so weak and so inept and so incompetent that they dismissed this case without any preparation. They didn't file any documents, anything like that you normally prep for a very serious trial. None of it was filed. And the judge even questioned that. How come you haven't done any of this stuff? Right? It seems like you're not ready to go to trial. And they said, well, yeah, we have more investigation to do. So I went on the radio and said, what more investigation was there? I'm a former police officer, former detective, former prosecutor. I got all the information. There's nothing left to do. This case was done. This case was cooked. But they let him out, and someone is dead because of it. So Doug heard that, and he comes out and goes, oh, no, really, what really happened was that we had 2 witnesses off island. So I check on that. Who are these witnesses? First of all, that's lying to the court, right? If they said they had further investigation, see, this is what I mean by Doug doesn't know how things work. He's never prosecuted a case. He's never tried a case, actually. So these are the things that he doesn't realize, that he's now admitting to the court that they lied. But I found out that the witness wasn't off island, right? So they say 2 witnesses were off island. One of the witnesses that was in the room during the robbery, and the other one was the police officer. Well, I confirmed with GPD that the police officer never went off island. So they got their information wrong. Second, I don't know why they needed this witness when they have surveillance video, high definition surveillance video from 4 different angles. And oh, by the way, there were 7 other people in the room. So any of those 7 other people could have testified. So they're lying. So I called them out about that. And then they said, oh, well, we're going to indict other people. See, again, it shows how Doug has no idea of how these things work. What does indicting other people have to do with my client? You arrested my client, you charged him, he exercised his right to speedy trial. Let's go. All these other people is irrelevant to our case. There's even a jury instructions that says this case is about this defendant only. If there are other people that are involved that you may feel is guilty, that's irrelevant. So it really, really shows how incompetent Doug Moylan is. He does not understand how prosecution works. But he wants to be the one. He has taken discretion from every prosecutor. No one can make a decision. It all has to be him. He is the prosecution team. He, himself, and him. Right? So that's why everyone is leaving, because he's a micromanager. He's toxic. He takes all the discretion away from everyone. And people are leaving because also they're scared to lose their license. They don't want to do, when they stand up and tell him you can't do this, he says, do it. Well, they don't want to lose their license. Within the first 30 days, 20 attorneys quit. Over the last year and a half, we've lost track already. Some of those attorneys come and stay less than 2 weeks. He hires these attorneys from off island, and they stay less than 2 weeks. Recently, one of the attorneys stood up in court and told a judge, I don't know why I'm being trained to be a prosecutor. I was hired by the civil. I was hired here to work in civil. So, I suspect that person's going to leave soon. Just in the last 30 days, he lost 5 attorneys, right? He lost seasoned attorneys, lots of seasoned attorneys, both in the civil, it doesn't matter, consumer protection, child support, juvenile, prosecution. They all refuse to work for him. As a matter of fact, we have a waiting list of people applying to work at our offices, the public defender and the APD, the alternate public defender. So when Doug says that there's a shortage of attorneys on Guam, that's totally untrue. Totally untrue. We actually don't have enough space for all the attorneys that want to work with us. And why do they want to work with us? Because they don't want to work for Doug. Because he's a toxic narcissist and a pathological liar. So getting back to the case where they dismissed and the defendant or the client went out and killed Josh Tidegui. The Tidegui family really should ask Doug for answers because he's lying. He's lying. And the court, I filed a motion to the court about this because it's evident that he lied. They lied. Gloria Rudolph and Doug Moylan, they've been lying to the court about why they dismissed it. So the reason why that's important is because whether they're going to dismiss it with or without prejudice. And so, of course, it was dismissed without prejudice under the reasoning that there was further investigation to do. But it turns out they were lying. They were untruthful to the court. They were not candid with the court. And how do I know this? Because later on they said, the reason why we dismissed it was because witnesses were off island. No, that's not the reason. That's a made up lie. And then they said, the reason why is because we're investigating and we're going to indict other people. Again, the court will tell him, no, that's not how this works. Okay. And so, Justice Carbolito even told him during the oral arguments up at the Supreme Court, you're making your subordinate attorneys risk their license when you tell them to do things like this. But Doug has a very, very weak understanding of the law, and that's why he keeps getting beat down in the Supreme Court and also the Superior Court. He keeps losing all these cases, him and his chief prosecutor. And, so now let's talk about how the legislature has been just bending over for him, right? So when Ed Hahn, who's an attorney here on Guam, started appearing on behalf of the AG's office, he's a private attorney. We were all scratching our head. And we're like, how can this happen? How can Ed Hahn appear for the AG's office? And then next thing you know, a couple others. But we complained to the court, and the court told him he couldn't appear for the AG's office until, they got some sort of documentation. So turns out, Ed Hahn, who was appearing for the AG's office, was doing so illegally. They violated procurement laws, so on and so forth. And so they went and did a request for proposal. So Ed started showing up in June of 2022. And the request for proposal didn't come out until August after we called them out on it. Okay? So then, it became a non-issue because I guess they stopped appearing for the AG's office. But now we have all this illegal work performed and they couldn't pay it. So in the 2025 budget, there is a clause that says any work done by any attorney for the AG's office since 2022 can now be paid. So in other words, Doug got the legislature to go and fix his illegal acts, right? And even authorize him to violate, or not authorize him to violate, but change the rules so that his acts that he did is approved or ratified by the legislature. So in other words, Doug likes to believe that the rules apply to everyone else but not him. And so he likes to talk about fighting corruption, right? But the two corruption cases are the Guam Regional Transit Authority and the public health corruption cases, which were not even corruption. They weren't even illegal. They were charged by Gloria Rudolph, who at that point in time when she charged it had never prosecuted a single case. And right now she's only prosecuted 2, and both of them she's lost, right? So this is what we're paying millions of dollars for. This is what we're giving Doug Moylan a $55,000 raise for. And we want to talk about corruption. He hired his brother, who was working at Community First, and was forced to resign because he committed federal finance violations. Think about that. You're forced to resign because you were caught by your company violating federal laws. So where do you go? Oh, my brother is the Attorney General. He'll pay me $120,000 a year for a job that didn't exist at the AG's office. They made it up for him. And then you have his fiance, Sheena Watkins, right? Who is a realtor. She got hired to do what? I don't know. From what I hear from employees up at the AG's office, past and present, all she does is go around and bully people. And she's physically attacked people. And she's had to be held back from going after people. But she gets paid $75,000 a year. So Doug Moylan gets to use Guam taxpayer money to pay his brother, who was forced to resign from Community First. You can check that out, right? Who knows? Is there a federal indictment coming down the line? Maybe. You never know. But Guam taxpayers are paying him $120,000 a year now, thanks to Doug. And we're also paying his fiance $75,000 a year to go around and terrorize the employees at the AG's office. Then he hires his former chief of staff. Well, when he got elected the second time, he hired his former chief of staff, Yoli Elliott, who is also infamous for going around and torturing and bullying people. And she goes and hires her daughter, hires her granddaughter, hires her grandson. So it's all about nepotism up there. And so all the people who see this, who want to follow the moral imperative, right? Who wants to do the right thing, who doesn't want to risk their license, they flee, they run away. And that's why there's a shortage of people up there at the AG's office. Because Doug Moylan is unethical, corrupt, and toxic. And he is not afraid to abuse his power, right? He's not afraid to abuse his power. I want you to listen to something that, and this is Doug. Hold on, it's going to take me a minute to find it.
Okay? People with bad attitudes, and I'll just say it, I keep saying it, get out. I don't want you in my sight. I'm an experienced attorney. I've got 30-some years. I've been in all three branches of government, second term as the Attorney General. I've got to go out there to your families, and answer to things. I've got to go out there and answer this morning, if any of you guys are listening to the radio, to why Peter Santos and his bullshit was not justified in saying that we have blood on our hands. Okay? That's what I have to face as your political leader. You're a temporary employee here. So if anyone stands in my way, I will remove you. And I don't care if you fight me at the CSC for the next 5 years.
That's, tells a lot. He doesn't care about the rules. He does not care about the rules. He is in charge, and he takes away all the power from everyone. He renders everyone in the office other than him impotent to make any decisions. Can't have an office like that. He even told the Supreme Court that he can be advisor and prosecutor at the same time. And they said, no, you can't. See, this is what I'm saying about how his understanding of the law is short. He doesn't understand it. Lastama, he's been under 3 different branches, judicial, legislative, and executive, and he's still Maduro. Oh, Doug, Maduro means idiot. He's still an idiot. Okay? Lastama, all that experience, and then he wants to say I'm defaming him. I'm not defaming him. I'm just exposing the truth, exposing the lies, exposing the gaslighting. Because the senators won't listen. They believe everything he says. They believe everything is hunky-dory. No, it's not. Have an oversight hearing. Come on. Therese Terlahi, Chris Barnett. Have an oversight hearing. Look at the illegal procurements that he's had, not just with attorneys, but with a lot of other things going on in that office. Call for an oversight hearing. And this is classic behavior of an abuser. A lot of people forget that Doug was tried, taken to court for beating up 2 ex-spouses of his. They appointed a special prosecutor who was just out of law school. He had Pat Seville as his defense attorney, who's one of the best defense attorneys on Guam. So yeah, he got found not guilty, but you got to really look at it. I mean, the injuries and bruises didn't happen on their own spontaneously. It was all legal maneuvering, so to speak. And the other thing a lot of people don't know is that Doug's been fleecing the government for years. As a defense attorney, he would take criminal appointments and max out all the billing, yet never go to trial. If a case was going to go to trial, he would dump it. But he was the only one out of all the defense attorneys that was unscrupulous and charged the taxpayers for work that he never did. So, Doug, you want a fact check? You want to drag your brother through the mud like this? About how he got his job? About why he left his job? Then let's do it, Doug. You like to dig your heels in and double down. Yeah, but you like to lose too. You always lose. Always lose. So, Am I a disgruntled employee? No. I just don't like people lying to the public. I don't like people fleecing the public. I don't like people twisting things around to make themselves look good. I don't like pathological liars, Doug. I don't like you, and I'm not scared of you. All right? Because you're a loser. You lose at everything. You don't understand how our criminal justice system works. Defense attorneys don't lose our cases. Our clients are the one who decide. My job as a defense attorney is to make sure that my client's rights are not violated and that the system, the process is fair. And I always do that. So I always win. Okay? I always win. Don't forget that. Whether there's a conviction or not, I always win because I complete my mission. I perform my duties. And I perform them ethically and legally, unlike yourself. I know you're not going to listen because you believe your own lies. You believe your own delusions. Delusion number 1, you're a good lawyer. You're a horrible lawyer, Doug. Delusion number 2, you're a leader. You're not a leader. You're a poor manager. I'm sorry, but the truth isn't always sweet. Sometimes the truth is bitter. And I'm telling you, Doug, you're a liar and you're a loser and you're incompetent and you're unethical and you're corrupt. So there.